Hello and welcome to the interview. With me is a special guest today, the UAE Ambassador to India, Dr. Ahmed Al Banna. Good to have you on the show, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Same here. Dr. Al Banna, let me begin with what's happening in your neighborhood and what made headlines here in India as well. The Yemeni citizens who, with the help of the government of UAE, came to India to seek medical help. What is the situation in that country, since it's so close to the media especially and to the world in general? Do you have an objective assessment of how things are in Yemen right now?
Well, it is unfortunate to whatever took place in Yemen, and some of the illegal groups, some of the very minority group that took severe action and overthrown the legal government. Based on the request of the legal government, the Arab countries have created a coalition led by Saudi Arabia in order to restore legality and the legal government in Yemen. Now, due to the war in Yemen between the Arab-led coalition and the Yemeni legal forces and the legal government of Yemen against those groups, unfortunately, people have suffered and people have been injured during the war, whether civilians or military personnel. And the United Arab Emirates, out of its international responsibility and being part of the Arab coalition, we decided that we need to take certain steps to introduce certain aids and certain help to those people who caught in this nonsense war in Yemen. So for the past almost 2 years, we have brought over 1,700 Yemenis who were injured, in Yemen to India, in many different hospitals, mainly in Delhi. And the total amount spent overall by UAE government reached to over $2 billion. Our sense of international responsibilities, our sense of contributing to the needy people, to the people who had no choice and who had no resources to be able to treat their close ones or to be treated themselves, we took an action, and the last of the Yemenis that came to India was about 3 weeks ago, and we received over 120 injured Yemenis, and we have distributed them to different hospitals. My thanks goes, of course, to the Indian government, who facilitated us receiving those injured Yemenis, and who facilitated also the issuance of the proper visas for them to come to India and to be treated.
So 1,700, it's a commendable gesture, no doubt. But there are hundreds of thousands who are being killed and who do not have access to hospitals. Those who manage to go to hospitals do not get medicines. And part of it is because of the blockade by Saudi Arabia, we understand, that aid and medicine is not reaching. So are you also going to use your influence with the Arab bloc to ensure that this country, which is already very poor and is staring at a famine, the situation doesn't worsen because of the blockade?
Let me clarify one thing. There is no blockade by any country in Yemen. This is a propaganda that the Houthis in Yemen and the Iranians are using against the idea of us preventing weapons, us preventing military components, to be exported to Yemen and to be imported inside Yemen. And it is not only the Arab coalition led by Saudi Arabia, the international community, including United States of America, including the European Union countries, have taken that stand. It is not true that thousands of people are dying due to a blockade. Our blockade is not against medicine, food, and all those things. Our blockade is against the importation of weapons, military equipment, missiles.
How do you respond to those who say that while a civil war had been simmering in Yemen for many years, the Saudi intervention really precipitated the crisis?
Again, if we look at the population of the Yemenis, and if we look at the Yemen now, the legal government of Yemen are based in Aden. They originally were in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen. Now, if we look at the population, what the population consists of, the Houthis, they do not exceed more than 7 or 10% of the total population of Yemen. They are not the minority, they are the very little minority, but they are supported by certain countries such as Iran into creating a government or a country that is pro-Iran.
So did the Saudis intervene to limit Iran's influence in Yemen?
Well, this is one of them. Not only the Saudis, the Arab coalition.
The Arab coalition, yes. Or did they intervene to ensure that the people of Yemen do not suffer?
Both. We intervene for the people of Yemen not to suffer. We help the people of Yemen into restoring legal government, their own legal government that's been elected and have been accepted
so to your
by
thought,
everyone.
Where is the war going with the killing of former President Saleh?
Well, who killed the President Saleh? The Houthis killed. They were allies. They were friends. President Ali Saleh and the Houthis, they're allies. They created an ally and they've created a big scene against the elected legal government that have been agreed by all parties, including Ali Abdullah Saleh. But see what happened. So therefore, there is a misconception that has to be clarified. We are working for the good of Yemen, for the good of the Yemeni people.
You mentioned Iran, and reports say that in the 2 years since the nuclear deal with the US in the Obama era, the funding from Iran to Hezbollah has gone up by more than 4 times. How serious, is it a perceived threat or is it a threat in the region?
It is a threat. The Iranians are supporting those terrorist groups, being Hezbollah or being the Houthis. They are providing them with the missiles. The missiles that was fired a couple of weeks back against in Riyadh, the international report, and lately only last week the US report says it is of Iranian origin. So therefore, this nonsense has to stop.
It has to stop. And do you see then Israel as an ally? My enemy's enemy is my friend, possibly?
No, well, it doesn't work like that. I think Israel has no whatever position and whatever we're talking about. We do have a problem with Israel. There are international resolutions, whether UN resolutions or Security Council resolutions, and we always say that Israel has to abide by those international resolutions. Basically, simply, 1967, borderline, and the capital of two countries and capital of Palestine, Jerusalem.
Okay. That, of course, has led to a storm over the past week. We've seen the violence that has been going on. I saw the Arab League resolution. Do you think that the peace process still stands a chance given the situation?
Well, I think the past year or so, or even more, the peace resolution has sort of slowed down in certain ways, but it did not come to a halt. I think we need to clarify a lot of matters. I think the partners in the peace process has to be neutral first. If there is no neutrality, then the peace process will not go through. So the partners who are leading the peace process have to be neutral, and they have to eventually make sure and to bring closer the ideas of the two conflicted parties in order to reach to a final solution.
The people of Palestine, it seems, do not really have one voice now. There's the polity is fractured. There's Hamas and there's Fatah, and there's talk of a reconciliation, but we've not seen that going very far, and we may not see it now, given the bigger conflict.
There are great efforts that is led by Egypt into finalizing that little bit of misunderstanding and the conflict amongst the Palestinian parties, and I think they have succeeded, and they are meeting, and the Palestinian legal government has moved into Gaza, and they have reached to almost a final solution, but it is a process. It might take time. There are differences of opinions. Eventually, it will take time. But the one important thing is that all the Palestinians stand strong against any decision that may affect the status of Jerusalem.
And now the Russians have jumped in. Do you think it's time for new mediators?
Well, as I said, the mediators has to be neutral. And if there is no neutrality, then there is a problem. And yes, it could be. India could be, or could play a strong role. Why not? As long as there is a clear understanding. And the platform is the UN resolutions and Security Council resolutions.
I want to dwell a bit more on the idea that you just floated, a role for India. What role do you see India playing, and how do you see India's position having changed subtly?
I just said that. India is a member of the international community, member of the UN, of many other organizations, and India keeps a very good relationship with many different countries. So therefore, yes, India, with its fine-tuned relationship with many different parties in the Arab world, India and UAE has a great relationship. We have created what we call a strategic dialogue committee and a strategic relationship. It's a vision-to-vision relationship. So therefore, India could benefit from those special strategic relationship with many different countries in the region, including UAE, in order to play a positive, strong role in the region.
Right, I'll come back to the India-UAE relationship in just a bit, but there's another conflict that has been brewing in your region, that is Qatar, and the isolation of Qatar. And months after it was said that the countries that came together against Qatar could potentially choke it, it hasn't really happened.
No, we never said that we're gonna choke Qatar, and we always have said that there are 13 points. First it was 8, then it became 13 points that Qatar has to adhere to.
But it isn't.
And the 8 points have already been signed and sealed by the Qatari Emir and have agreed on. And since that was in 2013 and 2014, But nothing of that, was implemented. And those requests are not, strange or impossible requests. We are saying to Qatar, stop funding terrorist organizations. This is, and we have proofs that they are funding terrorist organizations, be it Al-Qaeda, be it Al-Nusra, be it some individuals who have been hosted by the Qatari government, and they have been offered the Qatari nationality to even move about and do and try to create problems in the region. So we are asking for them just to stop doing that. We are asking from Qatar to be part of the GCC. They are part of the GCC, but they have to actually adhere to the rules and regulations and to the decisions that the GCC takes. You cannot be part of a group and then come and agree on certain decision, and then you go and leave that meeting and work against that resolution or decision.
There's a sense of déjà vu here. You're asking a neighbor to not support terrorism. You're asking a neighbor to not do business with terrorists. You're asking a neighbor to not support religious fundamentalists. I'm sure you heard that in India with another recalcitrant neighbor who refuses to comply, and the whole world is seeing the result of that. You spoke about strategic alliances and partnerships. Do you believe that while the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the entire bloc believes that action should be taken against states that sponsor terrorism, a similar position should be taken against Pakistan?
We have taken that position. UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain. We are not asking the international community to take a stand against Qatar or to blockade Qatar or to boycott Qatar. I have decided to boycott Qatar due to my own national security. But I am not asking the international countries and other countries to take similar step. I am trying to explain to those countries where I come from and my position, and to show them that we are not in a violation of any international laws, rules, regulations.
So you're saying that if India has a problem with Pakistan, it should boycott Pakistan. It shouldn't expect the world.
No, I'm not saying that.
Isolate.
It is the decision of the Indian government to do whatever sees to protect their own interest. It is a decision that it is taken by individual country or a group. We have taken that decision with Saudi Arabia, with Bahrain and Egypt also. So therefore, it is the country's decision. It is not any other country to interfere in that decision.
Absolutely. You spoke about a strategic alliance. I think the UAE was one of the first countries to criticize the Pathankot attack and the Uri attack, and also reportedly supported the surgical strikes mounted by the government of India. Where do you see this alliance, a strategic security alliance, going forward?
We supported India in its action against terrorism and against terrorist organizations and all that. There was no any other thing mentioned at all at any time. It is up to India to take actions according to what they see fit for their own policies, their own foreign policies, and their own interest. We support the Indian government in their decisions in counter-attacking terrorist organization and extremists, yes.
And the Prime Minister of India was the first in 34 years after Indira Gandhi to be visiting the UAE. Yes. And he's said that the Indian expats, I believe, form the biggest expat community in your country, yes. 27% if I'm not wrong. He said that all those people are India's ambassadors to the UAE, and there is a potential for the bilateral trade to grow. What is being done in that direction?
Well, I mentioned about the strategic dialogue committee and the strategic relationship. Of course, the visit of the Honorable Prime Minister Modi in August 2015 put us on a different track. And the visit that was followed by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Deputy Chief Commander of our armed forces, in February 2016. And then again, the second visit of His Highness to India, being a chief guest of India Republic Day, January 2017. That put us on a special track, and the traditional bilateral trades expanded. Our traditional was exchange of goods and services, oil and gas, and now we are on a different track on many other different fields. We talk about space, we talk about IT, we talk about solar alliances, we talk about digital and blue chip industry, and we talk about all those new sectors. There is a lot of cooperation between the United Arab Emirates and India. Yes, there is about 2.6, 2.8 million Indians living in the UAE. India is a trading partner number one for the United Arab Emirates. In the 70s, mid-70s, total foreign trade between India and UAE was about $150 million. 2016, 2017 figures, it has reached to $53 billion. We are partner number 3 for India. After who? China and USA. So that tells you something. Now, the Indians who are living in the UAE, they are contributing to the economy of UAE, and we're thankful to them.
Indeed. How do you see India's global stature under the current Prime Minister Modi?
How do I see
India's global position standing?
Well, if we look at the GDP of India only, that figure by itself shows us the growth of the GDP, and the GDP growth is somewhere around 7.5%. That's the only country that has that GDP growth in the world nowadays, at this time. If we look at the last IMF report of the ease of doing business in India, India moved 30 positions from 130 to 100. That tells you that there are major changes taking place in India. India has become a country where it attracts FDI. India has become a country where also it plays in exporting their own capital into many different parts of the world, depending on their strength, their economic strength.
And diplomatically, the world over, India's position?
Well, the efforts of and the relation Honorable Prime Minister Modi has created globally, and the relationship, whether in the region or whether in the Arab world or internationally, we can see that there is a strong echo, there is a strong role that India is playing in the international community, and the re-election of the International Court of Justice representative from India is again a very good example.
Indeed, it is. Coming back to your region and the war against ISIS, the government of Iraq said that they have finally defeated ISIS in that country. But one of the experts I spoke to describes it thus, that these terror groups are like liquid in a bottle. You tilt it and you say this area is free, but then it goes somewhere else. You tilt it again, it goes somewhere else. So you've not eliminated them, you've just shifted them from one place to the other. Where is the war against ISIS going?
Well, first of all, I like to call them Daesh, not ISIS, because once you say that ISIS, there is a word that is I respect so much and I value so much, Islamic State. They're not Islamic State. They have anything to do with religious. They are using that as their whatever. But having said that, yes, they were conquered in Iraq, and they are almost conquered in Syria. And if we go back a little bit and see the composition of the people who are joining Daesh, where they come from, very limited numbers from that part of the world, whether Iraq or Syria or what we call Bilad al-Sham and some other Arab countries. The majority are recruited from East Europe, from Europe, certain parts of Asia.
So you're saying it's not locals, extremists from the world over are...
They're not, yeah, they're from many different parts of the world. Daesh, and the people who are in Daesh, the majority of them are from different parts of the world. They've been recruited from Africa, from Central Asia, from Europe, from European countries. There are a couple of, there are percentages of the locals, but the majority, no, they're not locals. And they're fighting in the name of Islam, unfortunately. And there is a misconception. And this is what we want to eliminate, that misconception. Their attitude has no religious aspect or has no religion connection at all. Yes, we do need to take strong stand. We do need to make sure that they are eliminated completely. But then again, some countries are talking about bringing those people, putting them through a major reform centers to teach them to forget that whatever has been implanted in their heads, to make them good people who contribute positively to their own community once they go back to their own countries. And we hope that we'll be able to reach to that goal. Difficult, but we hope.
Indeed, fingers crossed. All the very best. And thank you very much for joining us here on WION.
Thank you.
It's good talking to you.